Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your attendance. It is Monday, May 19th, 2025, and we are holding our special meeting. And we will start with our invocation and our Pledge of Allegiance. Our school board member, Carla Powell Lewis, will lead us with the invocation, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by school board member Emily Sule.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let us bow our heads. Gracious and sovereign God, we pause in this moment with hearts open and spirits humbled, acknowledging your presence in this space. Thank you for the gift of another day and the sacred responsibility you've entrusted to us to serve, to lead, and to advocate for the children, families, and educators of our beloved community. Lord, I ask that you guide this special meeting with wisdom, unity, and compassion. Let every discussion reflect your justice, and let every decision be rooted in what is right, fair, and beneficial for all students. Help us to see beyond politics, personalities, or positions, and instead be driven by purpose, vision, and truth. Bless my fellow board members with clarity of thought and peace in spirit. Grant us the courage to speak boldly when needed, the humility to listen with empathy and grace. May our words build bridges and our actions create hope. I lift up every educator, parent, support staff member, and student represented by this district. Cover our schools with protection, provision, and progress. Let equity, excellence, and opportunity not just be ideals we speak of, but realities we work tirelessly to uphold. And Lord, for me, your servant, I ask for continued strength to lead with integrity and to support with integrity, the discernment to make righteous decisions, and the heart to always serve with compassion and conviction. Order our steps, and let everything we do bring glory to your name and good to your people. In your mighty and matchless name we pray. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
District 2, Mr. Lannis.
Present.
District 3, Ms. Powell Lewis.
Present.
District 5, Mr. Lewis.
Here.
District 6, Mr. Russ.
Present.
District 8, Ms. Sule.
Present.
District 9, Mr. Martin.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, moving along, there is items for consideration, which is only one item, and it is a resolution. And just to kind of make a statement in regards to this meeting, some of you, and I'm hoping all of you are aware of the Senate Bills 25 and 234. And as a result, those bills have been presented already in the Senate, and of course will be presented in the House on tomorrow. And as a result, though those bills have been presented with the notion that everything inclusive of that bill is agreed upon by East Baton Rouge Parish School System, or board rather. And so as a result, I felt, and along with other board members, that we should take a position. And that's where we are today, taking a position. So I would like to go ahead and read what that resolution states. And so, East Baton Rouge Parish School Board Resolution. A resolution expressing opposition to the currently proposed Senate Bills 25 and 234 by Senator Rick Edmonds and Representative Emily Shenevert. While the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board appreciates the willingness of Senator Edmonds and Representative Shenevert to entertain conversations on these bills and does not wish to prevent the voters of East Baton Rouge Parish and the city of St. George from expressing their view on the establishment of the potential George Community School System, the current version of Senate Bill 234 would place unfair burdens on the remaining students and residents of the East Baton Rouge Parish School System. Whereas Louisiana has established process for creating a new public school district, which is comprised of the following steps. 1, the passage of state legislation creating such a district and the signature of the governor. 2, the passage of a proposed constitutional amendment to allow funding for such a district by a 2/3 favorable vote of the legislature and the signature of the government. And 3, the favorable vote by both the public statewide and within the impacted parish. Whereas this process was successfully utilized in East Baton Rouge Parish to create the Zachary Community School System, the City of Baker School System, and the Central Community School System, as well as other districts within Louisiana. The East Baton Rouge Parish School Board does not object to permitting the voters of Louisiana and East Baton Rouge Parish to voice their opinion on allowing the St. George Community School System to utilize this same process to create a new school district. Whereas Senate Bill 25 by Senator Edmonds and Representative Shinevert proposes the required constitutional amendment necessary to allow funding for the proposed St. George Community School System and has been passed by the Louisiana Senate with the required 2/3 favorable vote. Whereas Senate Bill 234 by Senator Edmonds and Representative Shinevert proposes the creation and operation of the proposed St. George Community School System and has already been passed by the required majority favorable vote of the Louisiana Senate. Whereas Senate Bill 234, as currently written, in the opinion of this board, places an unfair financial burden on the students, families, employees, and voters of the remaining East Baton Rouge Parish School System for the following reasons. The East Baton Rouge Parish School System has an unfunded liability for retiree health care and retiree life insurance liability. This liability for post-employment benefits has been estimated by an independent third-party accounting firm by an actual analysis to be $359, $647, and $611 million as of June 30th, 2024. This liability has been created with the full knowledge and voice of the representatives of the voters of St. George through their duly elected board members. The proposed Senate Bill 234 does not address the East Baton Rouge Parish School System's unfunded liability arising from the post-employment benefits, which consist of retiree health insurance and retiree life insurance. The current bill is totally silent on this issue. It does try to address the PEB by setting up a legacy fund to cover the retirement costs of employees who leave East Baton Rouge Parish School System and begin work at a new St. George Community School System. However, the liability is only applicable to employees who retire from East Baton Rouge Parish School System. By East Baton Rouge Parish School System policy, any employees who simply transfer to the new St. George Community School System would not retire from East Baton Rouge Parish School System and would relinquish any PEBs from East Baton Rouge Parish School System, and therefore, there is no liability to East Baton Rouge Parish School System. The proposed legacy fund, as currently written, has little to no value whatsoever to the East Baton Rouge Parish School System with respect to the unfunded PEB liability. Whereas the East Baton Rouge Parish School System Board would be amendable to a transition period for students to remain in their current programs at their current schools. Senate Bill 234, as currently written, would dictate that the East Baton Rouge Parish School System magnet programs provide equal access to any student from the St. George Community School System and grant any student from East Baton Rouge Parish School System equal access to St. George Community School System magnet programs forever. Perpetuity. Although Senate Bill 234 contains provisions for the educational funding to follow the student, we believe this is unfair to the students, families, employees, and voters of the remaining East Baton Rouge Parish School System for the following reasons. It usurps forever the ability of both the East Baton Rouge Parish School System Board and the St. George Community School System Board to manage and operate their respective school systems in a manner they deem appropriate, absent any possible future action by the entire Louisiana legislature. There is already a mechanism, Louisiana Revised Statute 17105, which allows the transfer of students between districts by mutual agreement of both school boards. Although the bill is written to be reciprocal between the two districts, the impact is asymmetrical as currently 1,143 students who reside in St. George attend EBR Parish School System magnet programs outside of St. George, and only 183 students who reside in East Baton Rouge Parish School System attend a magnet program located within St. George. Many of the popular and successful East Baton Rouge Parish School System magnet programs have waiting lists. In this bill, as currently written, East Baton Rouge Parish School System students and families on the waiting list would be denied enrollment in favor of a St. George resident. While we agree that a transition period would be fair to all, this bill would keep this unfair situation in perpetuity. Therefore, the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board does hereby express its opposition to the passage of Senate Bill 234 as currently written. We ask that the Louisiana House Education Committee and the entire Louisiana House of Representatives delay any action on this bill until appropriate amendments can be made to address the above issues. The East Baton Rouge Parish School Board does hereby express its opposition to the passage of Senate Bill 25, the constitutional amendment legislation. We ask that the Louisiana House Education Committee and the entire Louisiana House of Representatives delay any action on this bill until appropriate amendments can be made to Senate Bill 234 to address the above issues. Further, the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board directs the General Counsel of the Board to deliver a certified copy of this resolution to each member of the legislation delegation of the East Baton Rouge Parish. Adopted on this 19th day of May 2025. Certificate, I hereby certify that the foregoing resolution was adopted by the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board in a special meeting duly convened on Monday, May 19th, 2025. The same has not been rescinded or replaced. Baton Rouge, Louisiana, this 19th day of May 2025. And that's it. So with that being said, are there any public comments?
President Stewart, also please read the item into the record, if you don't mind.
I'm sorry. Items for consideration. Consideration of a request for the adoption of the resolution regarding Louisiana Senate Bills 25 and 234 of the 2025 session, which seeks to create and provide for the St. George Community School Board and the system in East Baton Rouge Parish. Okay. Our first comment comes from James Laborde.
Hey, good evening, everybody, and thank y'all. I know y'all got dealt a pretty tough situation with obviously the split, and y'all put, I think, a very strong package together, explaining your opposition. So my name is James Laborde. I'm the PTA president at Mayfair Lab School. Mayfair Lab has got about 300 students that I'm aware of that are now in the new St. George area that still attend Mayfair Lab. So I had a couple points that I wanted to talk with y'all about, mostly about how to deal with the students who are still trying to attend. I think the verbiage isn't quite strong enough. Y'all discussed that y'all all support a resolution that allows continued enrollment for students, but I'd like that to provide more specific details to what y'all would propose as the alternative. And then with the, let's see, My highlights disappeared. The Louisiana Revised Statute 17105 for transfer of students between districts by mutual agreement. I'd really like to see something published about what the actual historical usage of that program has been, or if that process has been. Is it really like a process that's only valuable on paper, or is it denied mostly, or is it typically approved as it goes through? So that's a question for follow-up information on it. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. LaBorde. Next, we have Malika Winch. I'm sorry if I pronounced it incorrectly.
Good evening, school board members. How are you guys doing today? My name is Malika White. As a resident of St. George and a parent who values equity and strong public education for all, I support the school board's resolution requesting amendments to SB 234 and SB 25. My son graduated from Woodlawn and is thriving with straight A's. He texted me today saying, "Mom, I got some of my grades. It look like it's gonna be A's all again," right? He's a rising junior at Columbia University and a product of Woodlawn High School. And he's not the only one. Julie went to Dartmouth, another Ivy League, and we have some of his classmates went to Notre Dame. They had a thriving class. My daughter is thriving at Baton Rouge Center for Performing Arts, where I wish her to remain. However, this legislation will strip away options for families like mine, cutting off our access to EBR magnet programs, even though many of us have invested in and supported those schools for years. While this bill will reduce my choices available to my family, I still believe the board is right to request these amendments. It's about fairness. It's not about a breakaway forcing others to be left behind holding the bag. So 234, the proclamation to preserve access to magnet programs, we never really bought that. Any parent paying attention knew that that wasn't realistic. St. George, it doesn't make any sense for them to give up their top performers when schools are judged on school performance. Other breakaway districts are paying almost double in taxes and millages, and this move is likely to do the same, especially since they didn't take on their legacy costs and we likely will. So what is that gonna look like for taxpayers in St. George? So I'm alarmed at the financial hit this could mean for me as a taxpayer too. But with all of that said, I urge you to stand firm. Public education should not be dismantled district by district. I will be in the House Committee meeting tomorrow morning as well, expressing my opposition, and I support you guys.
Thank you. Next, we have Danny Altazin.
All right. Good afternoon, board members. My name is Danny Altazan. I'm a mother of two that are currently in the East Baton Rouge Public School System. I'm also a resident of St. George. First off, I want to thank you for taking swift action with bringing this resolution forward. It's encouraging to see the board respond to the legislature's fast movement this session with the urgency that this moment requires. After reading your resolution that you're putting forward, I want you to know that I fully support it. I understand your responsibility to protect your constituents' best interests, to defend the legacy costs, and to safeguard the well-being of your employees. It's not just what you were elected to do, it's the right thing to do. Now regarding Senate Bill 234, the language is full of what ifs, and this number is unknown at this time, but let's be honest, the unknowns represent real dollars, and the impact of those dollars will come later. Without relying on accurate, up-to-date information and data, the legislation pushes the financial burden down the road to a later time. And make no mistake, the authors of this bill have the most current data, they're just not choosing to show it. And for the magnet school language in this bill, I don't trust it. It reads like a bait and switch, and I believe that they're gonna use it that way later on. I'm a member of Pulse. It's an organization that fought back against the 2% sales and use tax on the municipal side. We know who we are dealing with them. We've been mischaracterized in this group as a group of solely magnet parents, and that is just not true. The language was written in this bill about the magnets to silence those that they have seen as their biggest opposition when trying to create their own independent school district for years. But we've been engaging with these folks for over a year. They thrive on bait and switch. Just ask them about their plans for mayoral and city manager salaries. We're already seeing the consequences of kicking the can down the road. Just look at what's happening with Thrive EBR. The parish is having to find supplemental funding to support residents, funding now made necessary by the deficit caused by allowing St. George to incorporate in the first place. We would be naive to think that the same thing's not going to happen on the school side. If St. George is allowed to create its own independent school district based on hypothetical numbers and what-if scenarios without real factual data, I guarantee you the East Baton Rouge public school system will be holding emergency meetings in the future, trying to find ways to supplement or to find funding for the students, to staff its students and staff adequately. I sincerely hope that you pass this resolution unanimously tonight. I'm not confident that that will happen, though, because I remember the vote for the resolution opposing HB 6 last year. I only hope that my representative, Mr. Martin, will make a better choice this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Altazan. Are there any additional further public comments?
If you want to make it. There are no online comments at the moment. I will check back in just a second, but we will be shutting them down. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Landis.
First, let me thank board leadership for having the courage to bring this item tonight. As a former student of this district, as someone who represents this district and someone who wants to be a voice for those who don't have a voice across this community, this is quite apparently the single most important resolution we're going to pass on this board because of what the impacts of those two bills look to do. And that's completely dismantle and break this system. This ain't about no political affiliations at this point. This is about what you're doing for kids. And anybody who's willing to vote no to this tonight, you're telling our community, you're sending a swift message exactly where you stand. Exactly where you stand. The maker of this bill, as you just said, came in here last year and she lied before this board. This same maker of this bill put up a DEI bill that wants to dismantle what you see happening across our states. She tried to put up a bill that speaks towards blighted property being removed from people who look like myself inside of their own communities. These policies are not being fast-tracked by happenstance. It's happening like this for a reason. And this time they're coming for our kids. If this bills go through, the MFP impact alone is going to be over $140 million. Let me say that again, $140 million. When you add in students with exceptionalities, it's going to implode. We're not even talking about legacy costs at this point. So you have a choice. I just want to remind everybody, when we joined this board, you took a sworn duty to uphold, protect, serve, and support the students of East Baton Rouge Parish. I stand with you, Coach, what you said at the last meeting. Nobody's saying you can't leave because we told you not to leave and we told you what's going to happen when you did leave. You couldn't support it because you didn't have enough money. You want to leave, leave. Pay for it yourself. Don't break our system. We told you to stay. We still welcome you to stay. All you have to do is pay your fair share. This is not right. We know this isn't right. There's too many kids who are going to be impacted and too many families are going to be impacted. And this bill has so many loopholes, I couldn't even tell you where to begin. We have a choice tonight, a swift choice. I'm asking us to make the right decision. And let me remind a lot of these organizations out here, these handkerchief organizations that's acting like you support kids and you want to build alliances. You showed me where your hand was today when you put out that statement. And I'm calling it out every single time from here on out. From my time that I serve on this board, I'm going to call it out. Anybody that doesn't have anything that wants to support our district, it needs to be called out. Because it's not fair what you're doing to kids. Our superintendent went through one of the most impactful things that he could ever done in his first 100 plus days on this board. And that's a realignment, which everybody don't agree with it. But guess what? If these bills go through, their realignment goes out the window. Because we don't know how many buildings we're going to lose. We don't know the fiscal impact it's going to cause our district. And we're going to vote on something that's going to completely dismantle our school board and dismantle our school district. No, I don't stand for it. This is for every child across our district. I don't care what color you are, what creed you are, what political affiliation your family has. Do the right thing tonight. Put the politics aside and do the right thing. It's that simple. I support this resolution. If it was my choice, I wouldn't even give them any amendments because you chose to leave. Now, you want to be supported? We support you and you leaving. But don't hurt our kids because you want to leave. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Landis. Mr. Lewis?
I'd just like to thank everyone who came out and came to the mic to speak. these are trying times in our country. And it's trickling all the way down. Just think about it. This is really not the America that I grew up in, with some of the things that we're facing in this country. I'm on record last week stating how I feel about this Senate Bill 234 and Senate Bill 25. I'm in support of this resolution. I think it's the right thing to do for the children who are going to remain as part of the East Baton Rouge school system. Thank you for coming out and speaking. And I'd like to say, give a shout out to my constituents that I've spoken to on the phone today, who have pledged to come down tomorrow and voice their opposition to this bill. Again, thank you for coming out, and thank you to those constituents that I've spoken to on the phone today.
Thank you, Coach. Mr. Gode?
Thank you. I appreciate all the comments. I'm going to take a little bit of a different tact because I think the residents of St. George have every right to, if they want to create their own school district, there's a process set up in state law, and they have every right to avail themselves of that process if they so choose. And that is totally within their right to do that, and I will not be standing in their way to do that. I don't think it'd be good. I don't think it's necessarily the best thing for them to do, but that's my personal opinion. But they have the right to express their opinion at the ballot box. So this is not, my comments and my feelings are not anti-St. George, not anti-split away. My views on this is more like how you go through a divorce settlement, which, thank God, in December I would have been married 50 years. I've never had to go through a divorce settlement. But this divorce settlement reads like, I get to have all of the assets and you keep all of the liabilities. And if you want to have a split up, that's fine. We're not standing in anybody's way about getting buses, schools, or anything else like that. But what's not fair is to do what was done by Zachary, by Central, by Baker, and by every existing charter school, in just being able to walk away from the liabilities that were created by this board, by the representatives of all the people of these districts, including St. George, when these liabilities were created. So if you vote and you want to separate, that's fine. That is totally within your right. Take your proportional share of the liabilities that go with it. Secondly, the idea of the legislature dictating enrollment policies for individual school districts goes against my personal grain. We, as elected board members, are responsible to our constituents to run the school districts. And to have the legislature come in where if we wanted to change the policies that are in this board, we got to go convince a legislator from Shreveport to vote for this bill because it's a legislative act now. And I want to address Mr. Laborde's question about how often has it been used. As far as I know, I don't think 205 has been used, but there's a reason why it may not have been used, because it wasn't in the best interest of both boards. Now, and I'm not going to cast any aspersions on the senator and representatives. They've, in some respects, have tried to work with us, but I had a comment by one of their staffers say, well, we can't trust you guys to do that. Or it's never been done before because it's not in your best interest. And the most galling thing was, well, if both of the school boards come, the legislature will surely pass a change. Well, maybe so, but what happens if it's real advantageous to one school board, not to the other? Will the legislature pass it then? Why are these issues being put in front of the legislature? Now, I fully am aware that we have a lot of parents and we need a transition period. I'm open to discussing what that transition period can look like and how it can go, but at some point, We need to be able to do our own thing here and manage our business, which may include having students come over or not, I don't know. But also St. George, if they want a district, they got to stand on their own 2 feet and have a district. And if it works out best for both of us, I'm perfectly happy to do some things. Just as an info, you know, just the difference in MFP money, or the difference in funding on the money out of the disparity between how many of their students come to us versus how many of our students go to them, that's going to be over a $10 million flow of money coming from St. George to East Baton Rouge. This isn't about the money, though. I don't know how St. George would operate without that $10 million. I don't know. It's up to them to figure it out. But I just want to reiterate, in no manner, way, shape, or form am I against allowing the voters of St. George to be able to choose their future. But their future has to come with the acceptance of the liabilities they leave behind. You can't have a divorce decree where you get all the assets and none of the liabilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goday. Mr. Russ?
Thank you. Thank you for all the board for being present so we can have this discussion. We've had a lot of discussions about these bills since they've been filed and gone through the Senate. Some meetings that we were able to have with Senator Edmonds and Ms. Chenevert and discuss some of those things. I myself have had frequent conversations since that period started with both of those representatives, advocating for a lot of the things that we're discussing in this resolution. My priority is that we work together collaboratively with our legislative delegation to make sure that the needs of families across this entire parish are addressed in a way that provides solutions, provides the greatest number of high-quality choices for families. I was elected to this board to serve all the kids of East Baton Rouge Parish, and that remains my duty to ensure that whether this potential school system happens or not, that the children in this school system, their needs will be met and well protected no matter what happens. The values that I believe are important to be included in amendments in this bill that I've communicated to legislators, including conversations I had just this afternoon, would be preserving stability and agency of families. So for me, it is very important that children that attend schools, in EBR schools, but live in St. George, be allowed to finish their school at the home school that they're at. There's a lot of different ways that we could figure that could be figured out in legislation. And what I believe is that they started at a very big macro level, and I have supported and I have impressed upon those legislatures that I would like to see more succinct language around that spells that out, as well as preserving the rights of those potential two boards to make agreements about how that would look in the future. Because ultimately, I agree with Mr. Goday that our school board should be able to decide for ourselves what those things look like in the future once we get past that generation of kids that would need to finish school where they're at. And that is something that I've advocated for. I want to ensure that we have fair distribution of liabilities, like Mr. Goday has brought up and we talked about in the meeting. This is something that has not been handled in previous breakaway districts, but it is a real liability. And he put it most succinctly when he said that, you know, if East Baton Rouge Parish is left holding the bag on that, then ultimately that affects the resources that get put in front of kids. And that's not something that I can agree with. That is also something I've advocated for with our legislatures. But it's also something that's never been done before, unfortunately, and it's going to be a pretty tough nut to crack. When I spoke with them today, they're still working pretty hard, but they've actually had staff and actuaries and people discussing this and how to best resolve it. Last, I want to ensure that our Type 1 charters have the ability to make decisions about what is best for their schools and the kids that they serve. In the bill as it is currently written, would essentially strong-arm at least two of those Type 1 charters into either ultimately becoming a Type 2 charter where they have less funding and more liabilities, or that they would have to become a charter under St. George, which may or may not be in their best interest. I don't know, and I can't make that decision for them. So that is also something I've advocated for change in. That all being said, some of those things are covered in this resolution, but I also believe this resolution contains a lot of conjecture that I can't substantiate. I was provided with this on a Friday. It was talked about generally prior to that in conversations, but there's a lot in here that I don't know is necessarily true in terms of the impact and implications of what some of these things are, and have had no time to verify any of that. I also would have loved to had a opportunity to collaborate on what this resolution would be, and I was provided no opportunity to collaborate on what this would say. I will say to Mr. Lannis, no school board member decides what is right or wrong for me as a board member, and I don't think voting yes, no, or anything else on this resolution puts a stake in the sand about what my values are. I get to decide what my values are, and my values are putting kids first, putting families first. If there is a St. George school system, it will be a tough time of transition, whether you live in Baton Rouge or whether you live in St. George. It could put a lot of, we'll say, insecurity around what schooling can look like for families. And I think we have an opportunity as a school system to help provide security to families that at least their kids can finish school where they're at. And as Mr. Gode pointed out, accepting kids into this school system from a St. George community school system means that we keep funding in this school system. If this bill passed and every kid that was in St. George the very next year had to go to school in St. George, the actual MFP impact is a little over $17 million, not $146 million. Of those 1,100 kids, that's at least $5 million that the school system would get to keep while those kids were still in those schools. That would greatly impact this board's ability to negotiate what that transition looked like over a period of time rather than taking a huge financial hit up front. In terms of reciprocation, I really don't think we should be looking at those financial impacts in terms of, well, is it equitable that we're taking more kids and St. George would have less? That's actually in our favor as a school system. If I was St. George, I wouldn't be so happy about that. But that would be their choice. So wrapping that all up to say, I don't generally agree with making platitudes and statements for an entire board in this way, especially when this entire board has not collaborated on this document. So I will be abstaining. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sule?
Thank you. I have so enjoyed the chance for us all to be together and have this conversation, and have been listening to my constituents and wrote down what I wanted to say so that I would not go off. Okay. As a mom, one of the most important things I can offer my children is stability. That value is one of the reasons I chose to run for this board. I have felt the concern and confusion of choosing a school for my own kids. I want families to have the opportunity to choose what's best for their kids, including where they go to school and why. We can do more to ensure choice for families. We can learn the lessons of Zachary, Central, and Baker, and more fairly handle the financial obligations we've created when we were a single district. We can do these things in a way that is fair to the students in each of our districts, but that doesn't pull the rug out from under families who have made choices that now have them crossing district lines. I believe that we can reach an agreement together that benefits all kids and families, no matter the district. And while I would like to see changes to the bill as it stands, and I believe changes are coming, and that this resolution is premature, I plan to attend the hearing tomorrow to listen, and will continue to add my voice to the call for amendments. But for tonight, I will abstain from supporting this resolution.
Thank you, Ms. Sule. Mr. Martin?
Thank you. Like my colleagues, Mr. Rust and Ms. Sule, I will also abstain from this resolution, which is consistent with the position I took last year when we were also being asked to consider a resolution. These decisions are for the legislature and the people of this state and this district to make in their respective roles, and I think it's up to them to make them. Our individual opinions as board members, I think we should all express, and I encourage anybody who feels one way or the other to certainly go down to the legislature tomorrow and express that opinion. I think on the substance of the resolution, I agree with many of the points made in it as noted by my colleague, Mr. Rust. But you know, a year or so ago, anticipating this discussion, I did some research into Central, Baker, and Zachary. I was really kind of horrified by what happened then. And a lot of bad decisions were made. Look, it's Baton Rouge. A lot of bad decisions in education have been made by a lot of grown-ups for a long, long time, right? But I was very disheartened. I was shocked, honestly, to learn that if the only people who could continue in their school that they had been enrolled in perhaps their entire educational career, who could stay after the line switched, were rising seniors. If you had been in an elementary school, kindergarten through 4th grade, and you wanted to just go your last year to 5th grade at that school you've been going to your whole life, too bad. You're out. That's not focused on the children. That's focused on the adults getting in the way. And I think that was poorly handled. I would like to see us ultimately enter into agreements under Title 17, Section 205 with all of the adjacent districts to say, you know what? We're so confident in our ability to educate children, we'll take yours. You send us the money with them, and we'll take your kids. If you, just in my district, I was looking at the information that the superintendent shared with us. Jefferson Terrace, which is in my district, there's 305 students who are not residents of St. George. It's a St. George. It's a district. It's a school in St. George area, and there are 237 students who are St. George residents. That's because it's right in the middle of both districts, right? And to tell somebody you're a block on the wrong side of the line, so you got to go to school 3 miles away instead of that school because the grown-ups made some weird choices for whatever politics they have in whatever direction. I don't think that's what's really looking out for the best kids. So like I say, I support school choice. I think that this district can compete with anybody in educating kids. And so I would like to see us attract a lot of students from not just the St. George area, but from Baker, Central, and Zachary as well, because that's how good we're doing. But that said, as I say, I don't think it's really, in my view, the board's role to take a position on legislation that other bodies are considering. So I'll be abstaining. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Lannis?
Let me just say, one, I'm not surprised, and two, I want to remind one of my colleagues of something because my name was referenced. When you step into this room, you do so without bias, or you're supposed to, and you don't do so on personal politics. You do so because you were elected to serve all kids, more specifically the kids inside of your particular community. Not a personal decision is made, but a decision that benefits them as well as the system that you represent. I also say this. This issue is so critical that silence is not an option. And while I have no quarrel with any of my board members, I have no quarrel. I want to repeat that, no quarrel at all. I find it interesting that we can't make a vote, but we can have an opinion about what it is we're talking about tonight, as it involves kids. And as it involves the opinion that you have about the particular item that we're talking about and discussing. It's simple. It's either yes or no. It's no gray line. There's no gray area. You vote yes or you vote no. And show people where you stand on the issue. More specifically, your constituents and the families that you serve inside of your district, as well as the East Baton Rouge Parish School System. And on that, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lannis. Ms. Lewis?
Thank you. Before I start my statement in regards to the item tonight, I want to take a point of personal privilege to say first thank you to everyone who has extended either prayer, concern, or thoughts in my recent personal illness that I was, of course, not expecting and completely caught me off guard, but God, He continues to take care of me. I also want to say thank you. I have a little bodyguard with me that is a fourth grader, about to become a fifth grader. He was a fourth grader at Ryan Elementary, and of course, we know that he will be transitioning to Progress Elementary. Wave your hand, my little nephew, Jerry Milton Jr. So, of course, he just jumped out of the car and said he wanted to come, and so his mom said, go with her, go with Sean. So there he is. So I wanted to share that as well. You all, I will say this, that I agree with several of my colleagues with many of the statements that have been made tonight. Many of you may have been able to follow the comments that were asked of me as I served as board leadership last year. And one of the statements that I made was very similar to Mr. Goday's, in the fact that, you know, if a person or an entity or a group wants to leave a relationship, we let them leave, you know. But at the same time, we make sure that we have both have a package of not only liabilities but assets as well that follow both parties as you break apart. What I think baffles me the most about these bills that are being proposed is, what is the point of having your own school district if you want to still act like we're part of the same school district? That's the part I think that is kind of confusing for me. And so with that in mind, I think about how many times we have been down this road. You know, when we think about Baker, Zachary, Central, as Mr. Goda mentioned, in many of our charter schools as well, and the pulling away of students and funds. And my question is, what will this look like if we allow these funds to just keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth? My conversation with some of the members of my community today and even before today has been, what does it look like if we are allowing our students whose families have chosen to be in a different district to be able to come back to our district but benefit from the finances being in their area? And what does that look like for our kids? What does that look like in regards to whether or not we have an East Baton Rouge Parish school system? You know, these are things that we really, really need to be thinking about at this time. You know, what's the point? I'm really trying to understand. And so if we want to operate as one, then we operate as one, and we cut this process off at the knees and say that we're all going to be EBR school system and there won't be a St. George school system, and then we can go on record and say that we're voting that way and that all the people can do that as well. Or if we're going to be two separate school systems, then that means that the finances, the packages, the PEBs all need to align accordingly. You know, that this is confusing to me. I'm in agreement with the resolution because there needs to be some structure to this process. There needs to be some reality set. Otherwise, what are we doing? So I think that those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Ms. Sule? Oh, Mr. Ballou?
Thank you, Madam President. You know, when the meeting was called, my understanding was kind of along the lines of what Mr. Goday was saying, it's that, you know, the board wasn't going to take a position on the creation of a school district, but we had some concerns or thought that, you know, there ought to be a formula for legacy cost. We also thought that as far as the reciprocal school system, crossing students being able to cross the district lines, that was better to do that through an agreement between the school, the two districts as opposed to legislation. And when I saw the resolution, it was, first of all, it's just way too long. There's very few legislators that are even going to read this, and I think by doing that, it just creates a mixed message because the only thing really I think most legislators, when they look at this, they're going to take away is that, okay, East Baton Rouge Parish School Board opposes creation of a St. George School District, which is not our intent, but in listening to a lot of the comments of my colleagues, I think it just kind of hammers that point home because I'm not sure what our message is. I've heard different things about what this resolution says, and it doesn't always match up with the words on there. But I just think it creates a mixed message, and it's too long. We really don't have time to craft. We haven't had an opportunity as the board to craft our message, and just listening to everybody today, I think there are differences about what our message is. So I don't plan on supporting this. My preference is, rather than abstain, I'm just going to vote no. But I do encourage the legislature to come up with a formula for the legacy cost so that we don't have to do that afterwards or litigate it afterwards. But anyway, I don't plan on supporting the resolution as written. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ballou. Mr. Gode.
Thank you. I just want to address a few quick things because I understand all the comments that my colleagues have made. One comment was made that this is premature. I'd like to remind everyone that the Senate Bill 25 and Senate Bill 234 was put through the Senate Education Committee while the entire school district was on spring break. And it has already been passed by the full Senate. And so if we don't do it now, there is no time to express our views on this. Secondly, this goes to the core of our power and our responsibility, more importantly than our power, our responsibility to educate the students and to not express ourselves to the state legislature that I quite honestly resent the fact that they are trying to dictate how we try to run the school district. I think is leaving our duty undone, which I do not think is correct. The last thing about some of the details in this thing, I have personally participated in 2 face-to-face meetings with the authors of these bills. All of these issues were brought up. Every time we go, oh, there's going to be amendments, there's going to be amendments, there's going to be amendments. It's passed the Senate Education Committee and the Senate as a whole, no amendments. It's up before the House Education Committee. No amendments have been introduced. This is not something, this is not something that we did not purposely put into this thing any details of what exactly we wanted to see in these amendments because we want to work with them to reach a mutually agreeable solution. There has been zero information and zero movement from the authors of this bill toward what our concerns are. They spent most of the meeting denying that there was any liability. When they finally had to admit there was liability, I see Ms. Davis sitting in the audience at the Senate Education Committee. She was told she was misinformed, I think is the word they use, about the amount of the liability, where we had actuarial statements which really said what those liabilities were. And those statements had been given to both the senator and the representative prior to that meeting, with references of where it came from. So this, in my opinion, has been very one-sided. I don't like having to do a resolution like this. I would much prefer to get into a room and try to negotiate these things out, but you can't negotiate with a wall. And that's what we've been with. I think that I'm not going to put any motives in anyone's mind, but all I can say is there's been zero movement after we've spent 2 meetings and multiple emails expressing what our problems are with this bill. And if you notice, this bill does not say, here's what we want in an amendment. It says, here's the things we need to see addressed. So it totally leaves open all of the avenues to work with our legislators to come with something that we need to address and how to best fulfill these. We're not trying to write the law. We're not trying to write the legislation. We're trying to express our opinion that this train is going down the track very, very fast. In many cases, probably intentionally, but it's going very, very fast without addressing the concerns that have been raised multiple times in multiple meetings. There's nothing more to it than that. And so I respect everyone's right to either vote no or to abstain, but this is not something we're trying to do to the legislature. This is something that we're trying to get our views to be taken and given serious consideration. Because so far, up until this point, we have not gotten serious consideration from anybody. They have finally I heard they finally hired or worked with an actuary to come up with some numbers. That was only after 2 meetings where we showed them our actuarial analysis that they couldn't refute. So yeah, they're trying to come back, but I don't expect anything. I have not seen a thing yet, and that meeting was 2 weeks ago. So at some point, we have to take our own lives and our own roles and responsibilities in our own hands and express an opinion, and that's all I was trying to do with this, Mr. Ballou. I totally understand where you're coming from, I understand, but this outlines the issues that we brought up in those meetings in detail that have not been addressed. And what we're asking is to have them addressed, not trying to dictate how they're addressed or whatever, leaving room to work together because, I use an analogy to a divorce. I realize an amicable divorce, which I hope I never go through, an amicable divorce is much easier to do than a confrontational divorce. Right. Don't want to do that, but it's got to be fair. It's just got to be fair. So with that, I move that we adopt the resolution as written.
Okay. I have a motion from Mr. Goday and a second from Mr. Lannis. Mr. Martin.
Thank you. Just a couple of points I wanted to add in light of some other comments. First, and I should have done this before, I do want to express my appreciation to President Stewart and Vice President Goday for all the discussions and meetings you've been in. I know you have been working very hard to bring these to the attention of legislative leadership, these very legitimate issues. I appreciate y'all doing that and bringing those to their attention. The other point that something Ms. Powell-Lewis said reminded me I wanted to make, which is on the issue of magnet schools. As I said, I support school choice. I think we have great programs, and I want to recruit and attract kids from any district next to us to come to our schools. That said, I also think that our first priority is the kids who live in this district. And so I certainly think that while I would, again, be all in favor of anybody can enroll anywhere, honestly, I think for schools that are full, that have waiting lists, that absolutely the priority should go to the kids who live in the district where that school is located and not to kids who live in another district. That's got nothing to do with who's better or whatever. It's if you have an attractive, very limited resource, that should be prioritized to the students who live in that district. And that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Lewis.
And I'll be brief, Superintendent Cole. Mr. Ballou, you talked about the legislators, how long it is and how in-depth it is. They may not read it. All they got to do is read the first paragraph. That's all they got to do is read the first paragraph, and that will tell them that we're not, that will explain to them what we're actually wanting from them. Just read the first paragraph. There's been a lot of conversation had around our magnet schools, but Every indicator in EBR schools has gone up. We don't only just have great magnet schools, we have striving and high performing traditional schools. You know, let's not get lost in the weeds talking about magnet schools. Every indicator in EBR schools has gone up. And they will continue to go up. Thank you.
Madam Secretary, call for a vote.
Can we, I'm sorry, before we call for the vote, I want to make a special request. Can we do a roll call? Thank you.
Can you do a roll call vote, Madam Secretary?
District 1, Mr. Blue.
No.
District 2, Mr. Lannis.
Yay.
District 3, Ms. Powell Lewis.
Yes.
District 4, Ms. Stewart.
Yes.
District 5, Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
District 6, Mr. Russ.
Abstain.
District 7, Vice President Gode.
Yes.
District 8, Ms. Sule.
Abstain.
District 9, Mr. Martin.
Abstain.
Motion carries.
Thank you. That concludes our meeting. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I was ready to go. I'm sorry, guys. Go ahead. Look, unadjourned. I'm sorry. Yeah, right. Let me hit it. Okay, so I'm going to read it. Announcement of meetings. Is this the right one? Yeah, okay. Public hearing, 25-26 budgets to be held on June 5th, 2025 at 4 p.m. in the Central Office Boardroom. Committee of the Whole meeting to be held on June 5th, 2025 at 5 p.m. in the Central Office Boardroom. Regular meeting to be held on June 12th, 2025 at 5 p.m. in the Central Office Boardroom. Now, Coach.
We are adjourned.